Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. On this week's episode, I interviewed David Lugo. Dave is business partner of mine with Movies Plus. He is also the filmmaker of the movie Welcome Home, which we just premiered as our first Movies Plus original on the platform. And that came out last Friday, the 23rd. And so I wanted to get him on to talk about his film, but also you'll hear, I think a lot of you will jive with his libertarian mindset and also, his Bitcoin background. Because I mean, I knew that I was getting them into Bitcoin as we talked about it, but then I eventually found out some point in the last year that he was using Swan and DCAing with Swan. I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, wow, he's really in it. So you'll hear from him though. You know, he's still considers himself pretty new. I guess class of 2021. Um, but he's pretty convinced and is enjoying buying all the way down. Because his first you'll hear, but his first purchase of Bitcoin was in the 60,000 range. So um, anyways, but yeah, I really enjoyed my conversation with him. It was kind of fun because we usually have conversations. I mean, we talk a couple times a week about business, so it was fun to do a different type of conversation that was, more about films and his background and stuff like that. So I hope you guys enjoy this. And if you want to check out his movie, go to mymoviesplus.com/welcome dot oh wait welcome dash home. There we go. Yeah. But you can just go to mymoviesplus.com or download the app in the App Store, search for Movies Plus, and you can find it there. It'll be available for you. And I think it's right now. I mean, if you're listening to this in the first week, it'll definitely be there. But as we're starting to release originals, you'll see the originals tab. But yeah, Welcome Home has Eric Roberts and Chloe Hurst and a couple and then some other off-Broadway actors and new faces and stuff like that. So anyways, you'll hear about it in the interview here. And also, I want to thank the Bitbox O2 hardware wallet from Shift Crypto. Go to shiftcrypto.ch/Bitcoin made simple. Use the promo code Bitcoin made simple to get 5% off. For Movies Plus. Yeah, don't let me forget. You can use the promo code Welcome Home and get $5 off your annual subscription. Um, and yeah, check out the movie and join us. Join us for the revolution as we change the streaming world. And also thanks to Upstream Data for uh, sponsoring the show. They have created the black box. They've created the black box. If you are getting into Bitcoin mining, you're definitely going to want to get yourself a black box because Upstream Data has created, Steve Barber there created something that deadens the noise and also encases them in a very safe environment if you have them outdoors. But you can also put it indoors if you want. But anyways, you can check them out at upstreamdata.ca, and there you can also see the products they have for sale. You can buy ASIC miners directly from them. So I strongly recommend you reach out to them. Steve's a good guy. Adamo's there, and good company, good people to work with. So upstreamdata.ca. If you want to reach out to me, just email the show, Bitcoin Made Simple Podcast at gmail.com, and I will talk to you guys later. Thanks. So yeah, I did like it's funny, I was gonna say the the cancellation is what uh is what puts us together with so many filmmakers. And so like people probably don't know that, I mean, they're coming cold into this conversation, but Dave is the filmmaker of he's the filmmaker writer. He co-directed with his friend Matt Schwartz the film Welcome Home, which is a Movies Plus, our first Movies Plus original on Movies Plus. And but Dave's also a partner in Movies Plus. Um, but the way we got connected was because there was a film about Antifa that was getting like censored everywhere. So the censorship suppressed it. That got me to get in touch with Jack Posobiec, who made it, and And then he goes, as I'm talking to him, he goes, "You need to talk to David Lugo because, they're looking to do something like you're doing at Movies Plus." And so it's like I think it's just really funny how the censorship actually pushes things together. Same thing happened with Most Canceled Man in America. Like I didn't even know who Nick Fuentes was. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And then they censored him, and all of a sudden I hear about him. So it's funny how it backfires.
It's a Streisand effect.
Yeah.
It, it's silly, and it's really well, I don't, you watched the InfoWars interview I did. It's forcing people to start create, like, just joining together and creating these like new like motherships that, there's InfoWars for news, there's, whatever else you listen to that's alternative to the mainstream, and
Hmm.
now there's becoming alternatives to mainstream streaming and movies. So that's what Movies Plus is doing. And we're like the punk rock, and eventually punk rock wins because that's what like the youth wants to do. They want to
Yep.
be rebellious, and all of a sudden we're rebellious for wanting to make just decent movies.
Yeah. We're the counterculture, and people get, it's kind of like grunge, like you said, punk rock, grunge, like fits in there, where it's like the youth will always gravitate towards, like, F those old people. I don't want to do what they're doing.
Yeah,
And we're
yeah.
stuck with a bunch of dinosaurs telling us what to do, and it's crumbling underneath their feet, which I love watching. Um, so, well, before we get into like all the, big picture stuff with Movies Plus, so get into your filmmaking background, and like when did you get into it? What really inspired you to become a filmmaker, and everything like that?
Well, officially, I say I started when I was 13. I just like watching movies. Um, so, like growing up, my father, he and my mother moved down to the shore, but he worked up in the city, so he stayed during the week with his mother to just save money commuting back and
Yeah,
forth to the city.
to Philly to the Jersey Shore.
No, to New York.
Oh, okay.
He worked at Merrill Lynch. He's like a data analyst. So he he did that during the week, and then on Fridays we would pick him up at the bus station, and right down the street in Tom's River. This is at the shore. There used to be a Blockbuster Video
Oh,
right down the
nice.
street from from the bus station. So he would always stop there. We would go grab movies, like two movies, like the new movies of the week or whatever. And that would kind of be like what the family time would be. We'd do our stuff during the day, but at nighttime we'd watch a movie together.
Hmm.
And that's just kind of made me fall in love with movies. And like, I would always ask for my stocking stuffers, like movies, TV, like whatever.
Yeah.
And I'd have this great collection, and I would just watch things on repeat. And then it got me into it. Then I went to, after high school, I went to New York Film Academy for screenwriting. Um, but, along the way, I met a bunch of people who I'm still working with. I did a little bit of music, working, promoting music, just shooting videos for a band that was local. And then, yeah, sorry, I got a job after begging a producer, a guy named John Saker. I begged him for like 3 months to let me work on one of his movies. He's like, "Hey, kid, I got a movie for you. It's $100 a day. You got to drive cross country, and you got to put yourself up. Are you willing to do it?" So I said, "Yeah." And I did that with my buddy Matt, who co-directed the movie with me. My buddy Steve-O, who's one of the producers on the movie. Our friend Shane, who's a big camera up now, and my now wife Janine, and we all drove cross country, stayed in a 2-bedroom apartment, and just worked on this movie called Rites of Passage. It was Peter Iliff, the guy who wrote Point Break and Varsity Blues. He was the director. So we were PAs, and that's what we just got our experience. And yeah, came back home, and then we started working on the Jersey Shore because it was just in our backyard.
Yeah.
So we did reality TV for a while, and we were going around doing that, working in the art department, camera department. My buddy Matt, he was one of their bigger camera ops now, shoots like all their big shows, shoots The Bachelor and stuff.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so that kind of got us into film. I went a different route. I met Wes, who's our other partner in Movies Plus, and he and I formed Elride, which is our production company, Elride Productions. We have about 30 films under our belt now. We have a couple on few on Hulu right now, one on Netflix. We work with a lot of big names. And we got into the indie world by doing documentaries, and that's when I did. We helped a director named Friedrich Moser from Austria do a film called A Good American. Saw Movies Plus. Oliver Stone joined in that as an EP. I helped, Cernovich with Hoaxed, just helped to produce and get it out. Then I did Sensational, film that I directed, also is now on Movies Plus. Um, the Antifa doc then came to me kind of, it was just a snowball effect after that, doing the docs, because I met guys like Cernovich and Jack, and, I like them a lot. They're two great guys, and they really helped kind of put me on to the scene. And, then after that, Welcome Home was always in the background, because this film has taken about 7 years, and like going into that conversation,
Yeah.
indie filmmaking and distribution is just, it's a killer, man. And
It's a disaster right now for filmmakers.
yeah, exactly. And so with Welcome Home, it was shot in 2015, at the end of 2015 going to 16, and we shot it for $600,000, got it done, went to Technicolor, did all the post work, and we won a few indie festivals, a couple awards, and then we got a deal through Indicum Pictures. They do like a bunch of big indie stuff. And after a few years of disagreements, we had to buy back the rights. And then COVID hit. After that, we got signed by another company that was affected by COVID. And then we went out of so this film had no home again. And then that's when I met you. And we talked about it, and, we kind of shared the same goal of what Movies Plus should be. And I think, that's pretty awesome that now Welcome Home is one of the first originals, or it is the first original, actually. So I'm stoked.
Well, it's funny because, so the film didn't have a home, and now it's like Welcome Home, the title, Welcome Home to Movies Plus, where it was meant to be. And it's funny how all these things align, because I think it was 2015 is whenever I officially broke off from the production end and started doing distribution. I think 2015 was the first time I went to film markets around the world. So it's really funny when you think about it, because you were doing you were making Welcome Home while I was branching out into distribution, and how those things come together, especially because when we initially talked, we're there's no home for independent filmmakers anymore. And my wife used to always tell me you have to tamp it down, because she was basically the only other person at the company. My brother-in-law worked with us for a little bit, but especially right off the bat, it was me and her in meetings, and pretending we were all important and knew what we were talking about. But I'm sitting there in these meetings talking about basically where we're at now with Movies Plus, and how something like this needs to exist, and sales agents and everything is a thing of the past. And all these companies are going to just basically they've been screwing over filmmakers, and they're going to do it forever until they go into obsolete, they become obsolete. And it's kind of funny that I don't want to say I'm oh, I'm this genius, but I predicted everything that was going to happen. And my wife knows how much I like to say I told you so. So yeah, so she just sits there and she doesn't even want to hear me talk about it anymore, because she's I know you were right, I mean, I told her this side note, but this was 2012. We were at a pirate game of all places, and we were just talking about random stuff, and I told her, I said, what's crazy is our kids, when we have kids someday, they are not going to even know the concept of a channel number, a TV channel number. And she was like, what do you mean? And I was, and in 2012, 2011, whenever that was, it was such a foreign concept. And I was I guarantee you our kids won't know, oh, hey, this game is on channel 32. They won't know it.
They'll know the app. They'll know the app.
Exactly. So I will flout myself there a little bit, say oh, I'm a genius in that sense. But there's plenty of other places that I'm a moron. And Dave, now that you're my partner too, the places where I am a moron. Those things all come.
We all have our places.
We all have our weaknesses. But yeah, so going through that that background of like losing the film, like where do you think a lot of independent filmmakers are stuck right now? Because I think a lot of the people in the Bitcoin world aren't really privy to like what's going on in the independent film world, but like they're all homeless now.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it again in the InfoWars interview. It's the wholesale of films, because it's just getting, make mass produce, mass produce. We just have to have something. It's called content now. It's no longer called cinema. So the
Mhm.
people who want to keep those roots, kind of like, I'm not saying like I'm Scorsese, but I, I
Oh, we froze, I
and
think.
enjoy. What was that?
Oh, we froze there for a second, right
Oh,
when you
so,
were saying you're not Scorsese.
I was going to say I would join. I would join that line of saying I don't want to be a content creator. I want to be a cinema maker.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like there's a lot of people who like that, and we've both talked about incorporating that like kind of indie passion for film. We like documentaries. The political documentaries are cool on every platform.
Yeah.
It's cool. I watch them everywhere. Um, but we kind of have like the again the punk rock guys, and that's kind of what we're doing with the filmmakers. I mean, we don't want to. There are a lot of films now that you have this.
The Bitbox O2 hardware wallet. The Bitbox O2 hardware wallet. The Bitbox O2 hardware wallet. I don't know, trying something different, trying to get you guys to get a hardware wallet, not because not because they're a sponsor, not for any other reason other than to just protect your keys, get them off the exchange, and you can do that with the Bitbox O2 hardware wallet from Shift Crypto. Go to shiftcrypto.ch/Bitcoin made simple. Use the promo code Bitcoin made simple to get 5% off your order. And I am telling you, this hardware wallet, I love it. It's easy to use. And like I've said before, it's so easy to use that I send Bitcoin to it all the time because it's kind of addicting. And it basically looks like a thumb drive, but it has a touch screen on the thumb drive and a touch screen that makes it very easy to enter your password. The firmware is safe and protected, and they have it all open source. So you know that it's good stuff. You know there's nothing tricky or nefarious in there. So get your keys off the exchange and please put them into a Bitbox O2 hardware wallet ASAP as possible. ASAP as possible. Get those keys off the exchange and into your Bitbox O2 hardware wallet and go to shiftcrypto.ch/Bitcoin made simple. And again, promo code Bitcoin made simple to get 5% off. Do you want to try without video
Sure.
just to see? I don't know, something's wrong with the internet connection. I assume it's the feds.
Dude, I mean, this is like impossible. The fact that I can't get this interview out.
Yeah, apparently they hate you. Um, they've already come after you.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So to backtrack, we were talking about the independent filmmakers and punk rock and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, after that, I'm sorry. Yeah. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that I think Movies Plus invites a massive audience that's in like a key demographic, which is like the youth that want to come up and be the next generation. If you want to be the next generation, and we do what we've planned on doing, Movies Plus is going to, it could potentially be the next MTV, like where people come here to put their shows up and their movie and discuss movies that, are passionate about them, So I feel like it's going to be pretty cool if we are able to succeed. And thus far, I think we're doing all right.
Yeah, yeah, we're at least going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Um, and now, so give your political background then to people that don't know you, because one of my favorite things was Wes, our partner, said that he wants to get you a shirt that said, I think the shirt I always remembered it was something like, "I want my gay friends to be able to be married while smoking weed in public and shooting their guns," or something like that. And he's
Yeah.
like, that describes Dave. Um, so is that accurate? And give people a little bit of background as to how you got there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a libertarian. I'm a Rand Paul guy. I love Rand Paul. I'm just fiscally conservative, socially liberal, I guess. Um, I kind of, let people do what they want to do as long as they're not hurting anybody. You know, I can't tell you what to do. But, you know, where I want, you know, there to be some limitations and some, you know, order is in the financial system. Somewhere where, you know, I can understand where like if I'm putting money away or trying to do this or working this hard, I want there to be some sort of peace of mind where I'm not getting robbed and my family's going to be able to eat someday. Um, but yeah, I mean, then my family came from Cuba. So my uncle's name was Ernesto Capote. So he was a lighting director for the Tropicana. And, you know, when Castro and his troops came in and they stormed into Havana, like my uncle and my grandfather, a lot of people they were on the boats with the owners of the Tropicana, and they were able to get away. But my great grandfather, my grandmother's father, Arsenio Capote, he stayed and he was like a head of the, well, not a head, but he was one of the leaders of the anti-Castro underground. And then he got caught and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Um, so our family has like deep roots in like politically that way. And then my uncle came here and organized like Cubans to vote down in Miami. And we've just always kind of been strong in our beliefs, like, you know, family, you know, God, family, and just kind of doing the right thing. And, you know, I'm not saying I'm perfect. You know, I was always a dumb kid, but, you know, like we strive to do that. And that's like my political background, I guess. But, you know, if you want to talk about the juicy stuff, then we can talk about the stuff that kind of made me a little more active with sensational.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that's it's hard to not have be a libertarian if your family, you know, had like some of your family were imprisoned by Castro um and they had to actually flee. You know what I mean? Like I always say, us like Americans that are, you know, especially the ones that like European descent that whose families like came here to seek a better life. You know, there was hardships in that way too, but like uh you know, they didn't have to flee countries because of a lot of us didn't have to flee countries because of communism and other stuff like that. You know, it's a the minority had to do that, but they I feel like have a much different view on how things happen around us. So yeah, so get into the juicier stuff of what got you more politically I don't know, active, I guess.
Well, I mean, when I was after 2016, when Trump was elected, um, I just, as everyone was in the world, I was interested in the fake news issue, and I started doing a documentary where I talked to people who were kind of like political high figure guys in the alternative media world. You know, we had Alex Jones, Roger Stone, Barrett Brown. I don't know if you know any of them, but Barrett Brown's got a very interesting history. Um, People like that. Lionel, he's a media commentary, legal lawyer. It just got it got way out of hand because I just started digging into like stuff, you know, going down the rabbit hole, and then eventually the FBI showed up at my house, and they, you know, nothing, you know, they were just interested in information I had because the person who accused Roger Stone of intimidation was named Randy Credico, and he was the person who arranged all the interviews for our film. So I had text messages and emails that they were interested in, but, you know, somehow every media outlet like New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, they all had my phone number out of nowhere. They all had my contact info, and
Magically.
yeah, exactly, magically. And they, you know, it made me seem like I'm an associate of Roger Stone, which I was not. You know, I was a filmmaker. I did an interview with him, and you know, I even had to give that interview to the FBI just to make sure, you know, like,
Just to crush yourself, be like, look, I'm a filmmaker. I'm not.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, and the FBI agents who came to my house, they were really nice, really good people, I guess. I don't know them well enough, but they were kind to me. They were just doing their job.
Yeah.
So I have like no grudges, you know, I'm not like, you know, bring down the men. No, I'm not like that. I respect the authority in our country still, but it just kind of pissed me off because, you know, I spent months after that, almost, you know, even a year trying to convince people I'm not like some crazy, far right racist. They try to call me a racist. I had to argue with certain outlets about running stories of me being far right. And
Really?
yeah, and I was like, it just got out of hand. I can go further into detail, but obviously these are private conversations. But it got way out of hand, and Wes, I'm sure Wes will tell you, like, we had people who just straight up said they won't work with us anymore. So that got me a little upset. In terms of, I didn't do anything wrong. I I made a film. The film's out now. It has people from the left and people from the right. I talked to people and I just kind of figured out, ways of what's going on. And some of the stuff I cover is actually, I feel, I was talking about Ukraine in that film
Yeah.
before Ukraine was a thing.
Yep.
So what was that?
I was gonna say, yep. I think I thought about that as soon as the Ukraine stuff started happening.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of stuff, like, and I'm not saying like I'm some messiah. I just was covering that story, and I think it was interesting. So, um, yeah, I mean, I'm not out doing anything crazy. I'm just a filmmaker who I feel like this is my ability to provide something to people, because I think it's people need to see, like, in documentaries, they need to learn something they didn't know, and in film they need to feel something that kind of resonates with them. And I hope to do that with Welcome Home, and I think I did that with Sensational. People who watch it, it's on Tubi now. A lot of people watch it there. People watching it on our site. It's on Alex Jones' website. It's got over 130,000 views on that. So I mean, that's what I do. That's how I'm politically active. I make movies, and I guess I'm fortunate enough, I guess blessed enough, that I'm good enough where people like Jack and Mike reach out to me and ask me to help them. So that kind of put me on one side, I guess.
Yeah, and then I mean, once you're in touch with them, I guess it's kind of hard to to not to shake that that uh alt right accusation. But it's just crazy that is how the world is
What's
right now.
crazy? What's crazy about it? Even like, Mike is. I think he even says it on his like Twitter. He's not. He's not. He's kind of like. I think he's kind of like me, like socially liberal, maybe like fiscally conservative. And Jack is just a family man. Um, and the funny thing is, like, I talked to him the first day of shooting on the Antifa doc. He came over and he was just really cool. He was just down to earth, just showed up by himself, no high profile. He was like, I'm cool with whatever, let's just do it. And I told him, like, I'm not a Trump sycophant. I
Yeah,
voted for Trump, but that's not. And he's like, no, dude. He's like, I'm not asking you to be. He's like, we're not even talking about Trump. And I kind of thought that was like one of the coolest responses, because you get this one idea of him and Mike from the media, and then when you meet them, it's totally different. They're both just family men, and they're just good at what they do, and they make valid points. That's why they're so big.
yeah, yeah. It's like I can't even, because I mean, I don't know Jack as well as you do, and I don't know Mike at all. But like I knowing through you how they are, I don't um I can't even like look at their posts online, because even if you know the person, if you like look at the replies, you start to believe something different.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's again, that's I don't, I would never want to be a content creator, because that's where you get into the weeds with that stuff. You start like, no, this guy I'm going to expose him, and make spend 2 weeks making an exposing video, and it's all stuff that you gathered from the internet, which is kind of half truths anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, which is like why I love doing Movies Plus instead. I mean, obviously I have a Bitcoin podcast, but it's pretty harmless because
But
we're
yeah,
just
yeah,
talking
you're not.
about.
Yeah, that's the of benefit. You're teaching people about something that is gonna be a very big part of the future from this point forward, in my opinion. I think,
Yeah.
and like a lot of people and very smart people are talking about it. that's of importance. You need to
Well, yeah,
educate.
if you get into the political content, like you're just going to get painted. Um, and so like the thing I love about Movies Plus, you know, is like is how if people try to say one thing about Movies Plus and our ideology, and whereas like where we had the most canceled man in America, so people would be like, "Oh, you're alt right," something. And it's like, well, no, it's like it's sandwiched between a documentary about the fight for gay marriage rights and a documentary about like over incarceration of African Americans called modern day slavery. So no, like we're not, and you know what I mean, like, and then like we have like a Roger Stone documentary on there about Ukraine, and so people will be like, "Oh, you're like crazy right wing." It's like, well, no, not really. Like we, are offering other sides of the view. It's just, it's really entertaining for me to sit there and watch the reaction to stuff we put out, because then, we have your film Welcome Home, and it's about an African American, that Iraqi or Afghanistan war vet that comes home and is being hunted by white supremacists.
Yeah.
So it's just the juxtaposition is really entertaining, because um, you put your critics in a position where they can't say anything, because they're like, well, you're like this, and it's like, well, no, I'm not. I have this over here, and like
Yeah.
we're not really like espousing views either. We're just a allowing people to speak, and it's funny how that is controversial.
Yeah, we're doing what media like outlets and channels, things like HBO, we're doing what they've been doing since the beginning of this industry. Like you had that one documentary series, I forget the name of it was, but they actually had a guy, they were interviewing someone who was a murderer. Does that mean they endorse murder?
Yeah,
No, like that doesn't mean that at all. I don't put that upon them at all. It's just it's unbelievably interesting, and that's, as humans, we are drawn to that sort of stuff, like interesting stories. I think it's a great escape. That's what movies do for you. Do I go to watch Top Gun, think I'm going to hop in an airplane one day and be a jet fighter? No, I just think it's amazing to get into that world for that 2 hours of time. And
yeah,
that's what we're doing. We're providing people an escape at a very reasonable price. And that's what I think makes us another appealing site for people, is that we're not price gouging. We know we're going to grow with you. And as people learn that, and as the filmmakers learn that, we'll be that place where people come to kind of launch their career, almost like when they would go to IndieWire to get a review. No, you'll come to Movies Plus, and we'll partner with you and kind of make that Movies Plus logo valuable, like people independent, something that independent filmmakers want to can put on their film,
hmm
um, before they get to Warner. And I hope that that'd be great if we help filmmakers who get seen, and then Warner Brothers gives them a $10 million movie.
yeah,
That's the Roger Corman school that we want to build.
yeah. No, exactly. We want to elevate filmmakers where, hopefully we have the resources and the money to, you know, be able to greenlight their next project. If anything, actually, that is what gives me the most anxiety, is growing fast enough so that we can do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like because like yourself, for example, I'm like, well, Dave's got we've got our claws in Dave, so because he is a partner in the platform, so if we're not quite ready to grow that fast, but like other filmmakers that we work with, where it's like they grow, and like what if Movies Plus is doing well, and but we can't support you know throwing around like $50 million to cover 5 different $10 million movies. you know like we
Yeah.
don't if we don't have that level of support yet, then we're going to lose filmmakers. So from the Movies Plus side, it's sad, but for the filmmakers it's a good thing, because that means that there's going to be people competing for them, and trying to get them on their platforms and everything like that. um
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. We've got it's that entrepreneurial spirit mixed with like the creative side of your brain. And that's what we put together here. Like you said, like you started out doing, you ventured out learning the business end of distribution, and I was learning the business end of like the production side, like doing this, like understanding how to run a set and make movies. And you know, it kind of shows in what we're doing. We have a great collection of films now. Like seeing where our, collection's gone in the last years is just awesome. We've
Well, yeah.
just kind
Well, what did you just say the before what movie did you just see get on there?
Oh, No Escape. Yeah, No Escape was great. I mean,
With
that's a
Ray Liotta.
yeah. I mean, if you're looking for, I guess, for kids, or anyone born after 2000, this is a, classic film. But in 90s film, where Ray Liotta is on a prison island where, in futuristic world, they get sent where there's like a peaceful colony, and then there's the savages and cannibals out in the jungle. And he sees both, like he gets dropped off in the middle of the woods and has to deal with both. um, but it's a great movie. It's a great action film. Same producers who did Aliens. So yeah, man, it's a good flick. And that again, that's something that you might not find highlighted anywhere like on Netflix because they have everything else. But on our site, it's a good film to put up. Expand the younger audience's knowledge of film, and celebrate someone like Ray Liotta as a good actor because that's one of his better roles in my opinion. Um, but it just helps. Makes us cool. We're not just offering you guys like films that people are making in their backyards. These films like take time and a lot of effort went into getting these things here, and we want to award them for that effort.
Yeah, yeah, that's what um is kind of fun. We don't It's funny, we're getting content that I worked on as a production assistant like
Yeah.
like over a decade ago. I mean, one of the craziest things, just this was in pre-movies plus in my distribution life, um was that I started distributing. I got like these Amazon deals for these big studio films, like in different territories around Europe and whatnot. And like three of the movies were movies that I was like the like shit production, like the production assistant that got shit on by everybody. It was like a Katherine Heigl movie and like I forget the other ones. And there were big studio productions, and I was lowest man on the totem pole.
Yeah.
And I just was like trying to sit there and think like, could you imagine? Like I remember on the Katherine Heigl movie, like one of the worst days because it was so hot. It was like a 95-degree day, and like it was so hot that the what do they call it? That what's the crane like skyjack thing that you put the lights on?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The
it
boom.
was sinking into the pavement. That's how hot the day was.
Yeah.
And I remember just being miserable and thinking like, why am I even doing this? I'm getting nothing out of this. Like, I was like, I'm getting experience and like $110 like for today. Like this is a disaster. And then and then I started earning royalties on it. Like because I made a deal for it like years later. So I was like, oh man, if I could just go back to myself and be like, don't worry, dude, it's worth it. You're gonna
Yeah.
get royalties for this film in the future. I would have thought that they would have came up to me and been like, hey, can you act in this scene and we'll give you 10% of everything it makes. Like, um, but no, it's just funny how it works.
Yeah.
And it's all come together. But so all right, so we got your filmmaking background, we got your political background. So what about your Bitcoin background, and where did you get into Bitcoin first, and how did that origin? What was the origin story of you with Bitcoin?
Um, I don't know. I was a late. I didn't start buying. Like I didn't buy in officially until when it was like around 60,000. So I
Oh,
was like,
nice.
oh yeah. So for me, it's
Perfect
been a
time.
buying. Yeah, it's been a buying frenzy ever since. But yeah, I mean, I was really I wanted to take my time and understand it and find a place where I can like purchase and felt good. And I use Swan Bitcoin. So I feel I love it. I have one of those monthly auto buys, and and then in between, as the market's moving around, I'm buying little bits, nothing crazy. But yeah, I believe in it. It's something that yeah, I think it's cool. And it's something that a lot of people are starting to accept, and kind of what we're doing with Movies Plus is it took a while for people to catch on, but now like big names are making big moves on it. So I'm a fan of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think people, I mean, like if JP Morgan is going to start offering it, I think Chase Bank is going to, like, all these companies are going to start offering it because they're missing out on the fees. They
Yeah.
want to be able to get the markup. Um, not all of us are as savvy as you to be doing the DCA with Swan Bitcoin. Um, how did you get? That's interesting. So did you hit it in 60K in like the spring of 2021 or the fall of 2021?
I think it was the spring. Yeah, it was. I'm like very relatively new to the game.
So you experienced the precipitous drop down,
Mhm.
and then it rose back up to 60K. It made new all-time highs in November of last year, and we were like, oh, here we go to the moon.
Yeah,
And now we're at like 18,000.
yeah.
So what was that like being new to the game? And were you having your moments like, oh shit, like I made a mistake, or was it just like you understood it enough at that point to just keep buying?
Well, yeah, my goal was always just to buy. Um, but yeah, I definitely didn't tell my wife. I was like, oh man. And then, but no, but once you understand it, it's not a get rich quick scheme. That's what I like about it. It's not like all the other, I guess what you guys would call shit coins.
Yeah.
Um, it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a storage of wealth, in my opinion. So I want to put it there. And, even like with Swan, they offer IRAs, which is pretty cool too, man. Like, so like if I'm going to do an IRA and, I have my other assets that I own, um, like why not try crypto out as like another account where if it does hit, and I've seen it hit, and I've seen it, even over the last couple of weeks with where it's kind of dipping and dipping, but it's kind of holding, and people, and as it's doing this little pattern now, people are talking about it, like the bigger guys, like you're saying. And it reminds me of almost with that story of the Rothschilds with when they were fighting the French, and their rider got back to London, and told them that Napoleon was going to surrender, but they spread the rumor around saying that the Napoleon had won. So the stock market started crashing, and then they started buying it up for pennies on the dollar. That's kind
Huh.
of what I feel like is going on right now.
Oh
Because
yeah.
they know what's going to happen. And if, they just want to test, it's like if you sit down at the table with your poker face, are you willing to, put up what you have? And I think that we're such a smaller, well, in my opinion, I am at least, I'm such a small bet that I'm not losing everything, but I can gain a whole lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like interesting because what you're seeing with Ukraine, like Russia, China, like I mean all these like huge global powers, and it's hard to say, like, I mean, I don't think Bitcoin is like the only thing on their mind, but they're definitely aware that they need to buy up as much as they can. And to do that, like they need to tap their resources, but also try and manipulate the price. So yeah, I think that's what we're seeing on like a large scale, is another Rothschild-esque move of like, let's buy everything and accumulate as much wealth as possible. um
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so does your wife, is she on the Bitcoin train, or do you just say, hey, I'm doing this thing and don't ask?
Well, yeah, no, she's on now, because as I've been buying, as it's been falling, it's kind of leveling out. I
Yep.
didn't like, so my losses are not as significant, because I'm buying more and more. I'm getting more like for what I bought at 60,000, I'm now kind of doubling that purchase, or tripling that purchase almost by buying low. So it's like the amount of Bitcoin. So it's she's okay.
Yeah, no, no. I just say that because I bought a miner at what might historically be the worst possible time to have bought a miner because the price of Bitcoin was at 40K. I mean, I used Bitcoin to buy it, so like the value of the like I actually to buy the miner now would have cost more Bitcoin, but much less dollars.
Mhm.
Uh, so in that way I didn't lose out, but it's really like the difficulty of mining Bitcoin is at an all-time high, and the price has slumped to its 2017 highs, which is like a total anomaly.
Mhm.
And it's like, so I'm doing the opposite with mining. I'm earning less Bitcoin per day, and the price is worth less. So it's just so yeah, but you got to tough it out. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta suck it up. I mean, I think about it this way: like those guys who are going out into the desert to, dig in for gold or whatever. Every day, their wives were probably like, "Yeah, you shouldn't be going out there. Get rid of that axe." And then they one day found gold, and they're like, "Aha! I told you."
Yeah, yeah. They're like, you're brilliant. I knew it. I
Yeah,
knew it.
yeah.
Uh,
At least I like to think that will happen one day. But I'm having fun doing it. It's again, I'm man, I'm 35, so I gotta, you know, as
you're
I
playing
said,
the long game.
yeah, I still have some time.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I feel like if I was in my 50s or 60s, I'd definitely have a much shorter time horizon.
yeah.
Uh, but I always get it. Is it high time preference? I guess a higher time preference because I'd be like looking for more immediate gratification. Whereas like for me, like I'm 36, so I'm just like, oh, like this Bitcoin, it's going into cold storage, and just it's gonna sit there for
Yeah.
at least 20 years. Uh, hopefully, like because
Yeah.
the world doesn't go to complete and total shit, and we don't, have some kind of like EMP that knocks out all our electronics. Um, in which case, I'll be prepared for that as well, because uh, I'm surrounded by people that know how to live off the land. Uh, and I'm learning slowly. But anyways, that's a whole
Hey,
other
man.
rabbit hole.
Actually, I watched the Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it's funny because I'm like, I think I listened to one of his episodes. And he was saying he's buying Bitcoin and silver and like precious metals, and I was like, that's pretty interesting. So I started dabbling into the silver world.
Like
Nothing.
physical silver, or
Yeah, yeah, physical silver, nothing crazy. I don't store it at my house, that sort of stuff. So, but I know I have them, and yeah, it's funny that the hobbies that you pick up as an old guy. Oh, I'm not gonna say we're old, but like,
yeah. Well, we're older than we were. That's for
yeah,
sure.
it used to be baseball cards and all that stuff. Now it's like, yeah, it's like, where am I putting my assets? It's just,
Yeah.
all
Oh, I
right.
mean, like I'm sure you had the same thing as me. Like during college, I had my DVD shelf.
Yeah.
I had it in alphabetical order,
Mhm.
and I was very proud of it. Um, and now they're gone. I kept Blu-rays because like there's a certain fidelity and audio quality, especially, but video as well, that you can't get with streaming, that you can get with Blu-ray. So I kept Blu-rays, and then like any of the DVDs that I was like, oh, this is worthwhile, I did that, like convert to digital.
Mhm.
But yeah, that whole DVD shelf doesn't
Yeah.
exist anymore. It's
Yeah.
all
No.
in Movies Plus.
Exactly. Yeah. That's where Movies Plus is now. If you want to keep your collection, just this is a cooler collection, I think. Probably have more movies on here. We're
Well,
getting it's getting pretty big.
yeah, I mean we're in the thousands,
Yeah.
and like I know. Well, I was telling people over the summer, I said I knew we were turning a corner when I started watching stuff on Movies Plus.
Yeah.
Like actually, like because I have the app on my Roku, like on my phone, I have it on my Apple TV. So like any of my devices, I can watch it, and I've had it there from the beginning. But like, for a year and a half of Movies Plus's existence, like I wasn't really even like a user, which is like a really bad sign for your
Yeah.
business if you're not like enjoying it. And then I started watching it, like catching myself going like, oh, like what do I want to watch tonight? And I'm like, oh yeah, that documentary is, The Rise of Jordan Peterson's on Movies Plus.
Yeah.
Going over there watching that. And then like, watching something else and watching something else. I'm like, oh my God, like this is a good thing. Like I'm actually making something I want to watch. Like this,
Yeah.
we're doing this right, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're like we said, we're getting movies. We're getting good movies. We have good collection, and I just watched a couple movies myself. Watched Middlemen this past weekend. Great movie actually. Luke Wilson, Giovanni Ribisi, James Caan, like great, great cast. Uh, but yeah, I just it's just a lot of hard work. We put it in the back end, and we're trying. We know what we want, and that's good movies. And we've been fortunate enough to find them, and they're going to keep coming. Halloween's going to be great. Our
Yeah.
Halloween collection is going to be awesome.
Oh, well,
Um,
we have like over, I mean, I think I think we have 40 queued up to release, like drip through the month of October. But we have another like 60 or 70 that we're like getting delivered and putting up as fast as possible. So I would say confidently we'll have 100 horror films
oh
to
yeah,
to
yeah,
watch.
and both. We're going to have like so we'll offer the short films for free. And these are good short films, and this way, that's another thing I think that sets us apart. No ads, and we have both free content and paid content. So people, as long as if you download the app, you still get the to watch movies without having to spend money. So that's definitely one of the cooler aspects I think of the site.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Um, so all right, and now for Welcome Home, the Movies Plus original, first Movies Plus original that premiered last Friday. So if you want to check it out, go to mymoviesplus.com. And what promo code should we throw out there? Do we have a Welcome Home one
Yeah,
specific?
yeah.
Is
I
it
think there's a promo code Welcome Home. I have to double check what the percentage is, but I think it's
I
like
think we
five
get five
dollars
bucks
off.
off.
Yeah, something like $5 off.
And then, you can any of the app stores, all that kind of stuff, you can find us. But you can find Movies Plus there. um and there might be some confusion on the branding because a lot of people say My Movies Plus, and that's just the reason I chose mymoviesplus.com is because somebody owns moviesplus.com, and I am currently still trying to get it. I don't even think it's a website that's monitored because they haven't replied to anything, they haven't done anything with it. Like it just sits there. um
It's a good name.
yeah, so it's like I don't know what they're waiting. They probably don't even know they own it at this point, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. So anyways, it's mymoviesplus.com. But if you go in the app store, search for Movies Plus, and you can watch Welcome Home, that stars Eric Roberts. Which by the way, I've actually worked on because I worked on the Batman. So I've worked on movies that Eric Roberts was in. Um, and well, not the Batman, that's the new one. I've
Mhm.
worked the old Batman's. Geez, that makes me sound old, but it
Mhm.
was the old
Yeah.
so but I didn't realize this. Eric Roberts is Julia Roberts' brother. I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
And until we were just digging into this film. But yeah, tell everybody about the film and the inspiration for it. Because it's a unique story and delving into the PTSD and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's so it was just I had, like everyone, we had friends who went away overseas, and they just came back, and you could see how rough it was. They thought that they were out there fighting to make sure that they keep a beautiful peace home over here, and then they get back and it's just like, whoa, what is happening? Like opioid addiction, drugs running rampant. There's talks of racism coming back alive. It's just not the world that they thought. Hence the name, like Welcome Home, kind of like the irony of the name. But it follows Cooper Higgins, he's a former Marine who came home struggling with PTSD, and he's trying to find peace, and in his mind, peace is like reuniting with a with an old love interest, played by Chloe Hurst. The character's name's Christy, um, and he finds out that her life is kind of taking a turn for the worse, and she's now indebted to Eric Roberts, who plays Gunnar Hansen, who's, you know, his exterior is he's a white supremacist, but really he's just a manipulator. Like a lot of elements of his character come like out of American History X, where, you know, like Ed Norton gets pissed off because he sees the, you know, the white brotherhood working with all like the different minority races, and he's like, you know, you're a hypocrite. And then, you know, the same thing with Gunner. He calls, you know, he uses racism as like a manipulative trick, but in all reality, he'll, you know, he'll do anything just to get his money, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so we have that, and then Gore Abrams plays the cousin, Trevor. Gore's in, he was actually just in the house in the Hell House Inc. That movie was trending on Twitter, I think like a couple weeks ago. So he's a great indie actor. He's done a bunch of good films, but he plays this twisted like character that I don't want to give too much away. But he's Christie's cousin, and you kind of watch out through the movie how this like triangle plays out, and you know, ultimately through the therapy sessions in the movie, with the therapist played by Michael Potts, who's from The Wire and, you know, a lot of great big movies. You find out that there's more, and there's a deeper reason behind this feud. So it just kind of, it's a small fire that keeps getting gas thrown onto it, and ultimately, you know, things turn out for the worst. But it's a nice little thriller action film, and the cast, you know, the cast is great, and we put a lot of work into it. It looks great. I'm really proud of it. And as you know, like Film Threat gave it a great review, so we have a couple other reviews coming out. Yeah, I'm real proud of the film. So you're looking for something slow burn that makes you think. I think this is a good one for you.
What was it like working with Eric Roberts? Because I know he's like he is a filmmaker. Like he is a working actor. He works
Okay.
a lot.
Okay. So actually, it was pretty funny. He was in our first option. We had another good, like younger actor who was going to play Gunner, and then at the last minute he backed out because he got offered a bigger movie. So we
Can you
were
say who that
on.
was? Or
No, I can't. But you know, he's not like that big of a name, but he's been in like a few films. You'd probably recognize his face. Um, but so he was on the list, backs out. Eric then jumps in, and it's like the third day of shooting. So our producers were casting as we're shooting a scene, and, you know, like I'm like, hey, I like Gunner started shooting like 2 days later. So what we did was we did a quick deal with him, signed on. He's like, don't worry about it. I love the script. I was like, you read the script already? He's like, yes, we've read the script. So he is a worker, man. He came in, he knew his lines. He was a little overwhelming at first because he works a certain way. But it turned out great. I love him in the film, and a lot of people like think he had a great role. And he really brought Gunner to life. So it was fun, but difficult at times, you know?
yeah, well, every actor is like different, you know, and like has to, like, I think there's, you know, I've always witnessed like the really young actors, and like especially if you're doing like an indie film where like they're like they'll be doing anything to get their, you know, to get their career forward. Like they'll just listen, but like when somebody has like honed their craft, like it's very different. um and they know the way that works for them. You know, I mean, like, oh, here I'll be, you know, Cory, big name dropper, but uh the like on I know with like Denzel Washington,
Mhm.
he likes like he likes to have like an intimate conversation with the director before like going out to do a scene. Like, and not like, you know,
Mhm.
nothing crazy, but like
Yeah.
the director goes out to his trailer and like they sit there and they walk through it, and like I wasn't privy to what the conversation was like on the inside, but like that's his process.
Yeah.
um and everybody has their process. So it, people would probably think like, oh, you're complaining about a actor. It's like, no, like, and I mean, I'm curious too, like, because if anyone's ever seen, like, even if you watch behind the scenes on movies, like directors are having conversations with the actors before the scene happens. So like, what are you telling the actors?
Um, it depends really on what the scene is. First, the blocking is understanding the space of where the shot's going to be. That's really important. So we go around the space, we walk around it, we feel it. Like they read the lines to me, and sometimes, there is one scene in the movie like we spent. I felt terrible. We spent like 2 hours lighting this one scene because it was going to be like a steady cam move. So all the lighting in throughout the house had to be perfect. And then I was in the room talking to Cooper and Christy, and they were the two actors, and they're like, we really feel like this should go like this, and it could be quick handheld. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I really like that. And then we would go from there. And then I come back and I tell the cinematographer, I'm like, hey man, this is how it's gonna go. And it changed. So like blocking is really good because then that it just saves time in your setup.
Yep.
And then motivations, like how intense do I want it to be, because sometimes, like you said, some people will go a little over the top and the moment doesn't call for it. But if you're in their mind they're doing a great job, but as a director, if you're not telling them like this moment calls for this sort of intensity, um, and this sort of approach, that's something you need to really talk about beforehand, because you can waste a lot of time. And as a filmmaker, which during this film I don't know, I didn't know, Welcome Home, I didn't know as much, but now being in the business for so long and understanding like the background end of it, every hour is money, like sometimes thousands and thousands of dollars per hour.
Yep.
And if you're an indie film, you have to manage that the right way. So preparing, talking, understanding the blocking, understanding, what you want them to give you, and then kind of guide them and then give them a lot of creative freedom to expand, but just let them know how the story is going to be. Because in your head, what it's going to look like as a director. You kind of envision the finished product before you even start shooting, because that kind of helps you. But along the way, there's always room for creative changes, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. um it's just it's such an interesting medium in art, the art form, because like, I guess if you're making a painting, the painting can take you in a certain direction, but like, you're taking something, movies are in 2D, but you're like working in like a 4D environment, you know,
I
and
mean, yeah, and like there's just some elements that you have to. So there are scenes in Welcome Home, or you've seen the movie. So
yeah.
um, the opening scene where he walks in and when he comes home and he's walking around the living room,
Hmm.
um, it looks like it's bright and sunny out, but actually on that day it was downpouring.
Yeah.
So we had to bring the sun up and go because the script called for it. You have to, no matter what, you have to make sure that there is continuity throughout the film, um, and that calls for certain things and certain tools.
Hmm. Yeah. No, it you know you never know what every day is going to present. You never know what, like, some, like you said, the actors might say, hey, like, we want to do it this way, and you're like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. And yeah, it's just it's interesting. And then if you're on a big movie, like if you're on like a Disney production where you have an endless budget, you're like, yeah, whatever, like, that's fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the dream one day to get that sort of budget. But I think you get more creative when your budget's smaller.
Yeah.
Uh, you think of ways to make these things work, and you've been on sets. You have a ton of people surrounding one tiny room with all this equipment being hidden. wires running everywhere, lights overhead, cameras following you, and then you need a scene that requires like total peace. It takes a lot of planning, but you find a way to do it. You find a way to make it happen on your budget, and that's a kind of an achievement in itself. Just seeing like what you had to work with. I mean, we shot this whole movie in 18 days. With under $600,000.
Wow.
So it was just kind of like a race, and sometimes you don't sleep. Like I would be, because I was the director, but also producer, because I'm one of the owners of Elride, and I had to handle a lot of like budgetary stuff. So on my days off as a director, I would be, my other producer would wake me up and say, hey, you got to come over here. We got to look at all the money. And I turn off my creative cap and go into counting money and receipts and making sure we have payroll and making sure we have enough money to do what we need to do the next week. It's overwhelming, but again, it's rewarding. Something I've always wanted to do. And it's just helps you understand what you want to do for the next film. I think the next film that we plan on doing, I'm really excited about. And it's going to be really great. I'm going to do it for something not too much bigger than the budget I had, but I'm going to understand how I can work around, get more creative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's the key. We're creative people, but the lower the budget, the more creative we have to be.
Yeah.
And yeah. So tell people, I guess, where they can, where can they follow you, because you don't have a social media account.
No, I
but
stay away from that stuff
but they can follow your progression in certain places.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we're on Twitter at LRideProds. You'll probably see us a lot on the Movies Plus page. We're always, sharing your stuff. And then LRide, el-ride.com is our company website. You can go see all the other movies that we've done and, find places to watch them. And that's pretty much it. I just use the Twitter handle, Instagram at LRideProds. Not too much, do a lot of work on that. We're really kind of pushing Movies Plus right now, but if you want to follow our other movies and stuff, those are the best handles.
Awesome. Well, Dave, thanks so much for coming on. I'm sure you'll be on again, and look forward to doing it again.
Thanks, Cory. I appreciate having me, man.
Thanks again to Dave for joining the show, and thank you guys as always for listening. And thank the sponsor, Shift Crypto, the BitBox02 hardware wallet. Go to shiftcrypto.ch/Bitcoin Made Simple. Use the promo code Bitcoin Made Simple to get 5% off, and also go to mymoviesplus.com and you can use the promo code Welcome Home to get $5 off and save $5 on your subscription. Watch the new original Welcome Home that we were talking about in this episode, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks.